My name is Sarah Mitchell, and until 2 weeks before my wedding, I believed everything in my life was finally falling into place. I was 29 years old and worked as an elementary school teacher in a small town outside Chicago. My life wasn't perfect, but it was good. I had a job I loved, friends I could trust, and most importantly, I was about to marry the man of my dreams. His name was Daniel Carter. Daniel and I had been together for 5 years. He was kind, patient, and always knew how to make me laugh, even on my worst days. When he proposed during a weekend trip to a lakeside cabin, I didn't hesitate for even a second. "Yes!" I had shouted, before he could even finish his question. That moment felt like the beginning of the happiest chapter of my life. Now, after nearly a year of planning, our wedding was only 3 weeks away. Most of the difficult work was finished. The venue was booked. The flowers were ordered. The invitations had been sent. Guests had confirmed their attendance. Everything was ready. Well, almost everything. There was one thing I cared about more than anything else: my wedding dress. I know some people think wedding dresses are just pieces of clothing, but for me, it was much more than that. I had spent months saving money for it. Every time I wanted to buy something unnecessary, I reminded myself of the dress. Every time my friends invited me on expensive weekends away, I politely declined. I wanted something special, something that would make me feel beautiful on the most important day of my life. After visiting countless bridal shops, I finally found the perfect boutique. The owner, a sweet woman named Mrs. Reynolds, helped me design a custom dress. The gown had delicate lace sleeves, a fitted waist, and a long flowing skirt that seemed to float whenever I walked. The first time I tried it on, I nearly cried. My mother cried. Even my younger sister Lauren looked impressed. "Wow," she had said. "You actually look like one of those brides in wedding magazines." I laughed. "Thanks, I think." Lauren rolled her eyes. "You know what I mean." At that moment, everything felt normal between us. Lauren and I had always been different. I preferred quiet evenings with books and coffee. Lauren loved attention. She was outgoing, energetic, and always wanted to be the center of every room she entered. Recently, she had become focused on building a career as a social media influencer. She posted videos almost every day, fashion tips, beauty advice, relationship discussions, travel content. It seemed like her entire life revolved around her phone. Sometimes I worried about how much pressure she put on herself. One afternoon, while helping me organize wedding decorations, Lauren suddenly asked a question. "How much did the dress cost?" I looked up from a box of decorations. "The dress?" "Yeah." I hesitated. "It was expensive." Lauren smirked. "That's not an answer." I laughed nervously. "Let's just say I've been saving for a long time." Her eyes widened. "Seriously?" "Seriously?" For a moment, she was quiet. Then she nodded slowly. "I guess it makes sense. It's your wedding." Something about her tone felt strange. Not angry, not exactly. Just different. Before I could ask what was wrong, her phone buzzed. Immediately, her attention shifted. She grabbed the device and started typing. "Conversation over." I told myself I was imagining things. Wedding planning was stressful for everyone. Maybe Lauren was simply distracted. A few days later, my mother hosted a family dinner. Daniel came with me, and the evening was filled with laughter and wedding talk. At least, most of it was. Every time someone mentioned the wedding, Lauren became unusually quiet. When my aunt complimented the venue, Lauren changed the subject. When my cousin asked about the honeymoon, Lauren looked down at her plate. And when my mother asked whether she wanted to see pictures from my final dress fitting, Lauren stood up from the table. "I'm going to get some fresh air," she said. The room fell silent. Daniel squeezed my hand under the table. I forced a smile. "She's probably tired." But deep inside, a small feeling of concern began to grow. At the time, I ignored it. I had no reason to believe that my sister's strange behavior would soon turn into the biggest problem of my life. And I certainly never imagined that the beautiful wedding dress I had worked so hard to afford was about to disappear. 2 weeks before the wedding, I woke up feeling excited. That afternoon, I had my final dress fitting. For months, I had imagined this moment. The dress would be completely finished, perfectly adjusted, and ready to take home. I couldn't stop smiling during breakfast. Daniel noticed immediately. "You look happier than usual." I laughed. "Today's the day." "The dress? The dress?" He shook his head with a smile. "I think you're more excited about that dress than marrying me." I pretended to think about it. "It's very close." Daniel laughed and kissed my forehead. "Well, try not to forget who the groom is." No promises. A few hours later, I drove to Reynolds Bridal Boutique. The summer sun was shining, and everything felt perfect. As I parked my car, I imagined myself walking down the aisle. I imagined Daniel waiting for me at the altar. I imagined my family smiling as I entered the room. The future looked bright. I had no idea everything was about to change. The bell above the boutique door rang as I entered. The familiar scent of fabric and perfume filled the air. Mrs. Reynolds looked up from behind the counter. She smiled. Then her smile suddenly disappeared. A confused expression replaced it. "Sarah?" "Hi, Mrs. Reynolds." For a second, she simply stared at me. Then she said something that made absolutely no sense. "What are you doing here?" I laughed. "My final fitting." She looked even more confused. "Final fitting?" "Yes." The silence that followed felt strange. Mrs. Reynolds slowly set down the papers in her hand. "Sarah, your dress was collected last week." I blinked. "What?" "The dress." She pointed toward the storage room. "Your sister picked it up." The words didn't register. My mind refused to understand them. "I'm sorry," I said. "What did you just say?" Mrs. Reynolds looked worried. "Lauren came last Thursday." My stomach tightened. "Lauren?" "Yes." "No." I shook my head immediately. There must be a mistake. Mrs. Reynolds walked behind the counter and opened a file. She checked several documents. Then she handed one to me. My heart started racing. There was a signature, a pickup confirmation, and next to it was Lauren's name. I stared at the paper. The room suddenly felt smaller. Why would she pick up my wedding dress? Mrs. Reynolds looked uncomfortable. I assumed you sent her. I didn't. The color drained from her face. Oh my goodness! For several seconds, neither of us spoke. My hands were shaking. I immediately pulled out my phone. Lauren answered on the fourth ring. Hey, Sarah! Her voice sounded normal. Too normal. Where's my dress? Silence. A long silence. My stomach dropped. Lauren. Why are you asking? Because the bridal shop says you picked it up. Another pause. Then she laughed nervously. Oh. Oh. That was her response? Oh. What do you mean, oh? I was going to tell you. My heart pounded harder. You took my wedding dress? It's not a big deal. Not a big deal. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Lauren, where is it? I have it. The boutique suddenly felt freezing cold. You have it? Relax. Relax. Several customers turned to look at me. I lowered my voice. Lauren, why do you have my wedding dress? Her answer made no sense. I needed it for a project. A project? It's complicated. No, I said firmly. Actually, it's very simple. That's my wedding dress. I know. Then bring it back. Another silence. I can't. My heart nearly stopped. What do you mean you can't? I'll explain later. Lauren. But before I could finish, she ended the call. I stared at my phone in disbelief. She hung up on me. Mrs. Reynolds looked concerned. Sarah, is everything okay? I barely heard her. 1,000 terrible possibilities filled my mind. Had Lauren damaged the dress? Lost it? Sold it? Why would she take it in the first place? Nothing made sense. I tried calling again. No answer. Again, no answer. Again. Straight to voicemail. I felt panic rising inside me. The wedding was only 14 days away. My custom dress, the dress I had saved for, dreamed about, and waited months to wear, was missing, and my own sister had taken it. As I stood in the middle of the boutique, one terrifying question echoed through my mind. What if she had ruined it? I didn't wait another second. I rushed out of the store, got into my car, and headed directly toward Lauren's apartment. I needed answers. And something told me I wasn't going to like what I found. The entire drive to Lauren's apartment felt endless. My hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly that my fingers hurt. I kept replaying the phone conversation in my head. I needed it for a project. What project? What kind of project required someone else's wedding dress? And why would she take it without asking? The more I thought about it, the angrier I became. Lauren wasn't a child. She was 27 years old. She knew exactly what she was doing. When I finally pulled into the parking lot outside her apartment building, my heart was pounding. I grabbed my purse and practically ran to the entrance. The elevator seemed painfully slow. Every second felt like an hour. When I reached the third floor, I marched straight to apartment 312, Lauren's apartment. I knocked once. No answer. I knocked again. Still nothing. Then I heard movement inside. A few seconds later, the door slowly opened. Lauren stood there wearing sweatpants and a loose sweater. At first glance, she looked completely normal, almost relaxed, until she saw my face. Immediately, her expression changed. "Sarah, move!" "What?" "Move!" Without waiting for permission, I stepped inside. Lauren quickly closed the door behind me. "Can we talk about this calmly?" "No." I looked around the apartment. My eyes searched every corner, the living room, the dining area, the hallway. Then I saw it, and my heart nearly stopped. My wedding dress. It was hanging near the window, not inside a protective garment bag, not safely stored. Just hanging openly in the room. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. The dress looked different, very different. I walked closer. Lauren followed nervously behind me. "Sarah, listen!" I ignored her. There were visible makeup stains near the collar. The bottom of the dress had dirt marks. The fabric wasn't torn, but it definitely wasn't in the same condition as when I last saw it. I slowly touched the sleeve. My stomach twisted. "What happened to it?" Lauren looked away. "It was an accident." I turned toward her. "An accident?" She swallowed. "We had a photo shoot." "A photo shoot." The word echoed in my head. "A photo shoot?" Lauren nodded. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "You stole my wedding dress for a photo shoot?" "I wasn't stealing it." My jaw dropped. "You took it without permission." "I was going to return it." "After doing what exactly?" Lauren crossed her arms. "You don't understand." "No, Lauren, I understand perfectly." I pointed at the dress. "That dress cost thousands of dollars." "I know. I spent months saving for it." "I know. It was made specifically for me." "I know." The sudden shout surprised both of us. The apartment became silent. Lauren's eyes filled with frustration. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then she sighed heavily. "You have no idea what my life has been like lately." I stared at her. "What does that have to do with my dress?" "Everything." Lauren sat down on the couch. She looked exhausted, far more exhausted than angry. "My engagement content isn't performing well." I blinked. "What?" "My followers are leaving." I couldn't believe this conversation. "My sponsors are unhappy." "Lauren?" "My videos aren't getting views." "Lauren!" She finally looked at me. "You don't get it." I took a deep breath. "Then explain it." Lauren rubbed her eyes. "I needed something special." I waited. "Something beautiful." Still waiting. "Something people would pay attention to." The realization hit me immediately. The dress. She wanted the attention my wedding was getting. My stomach sank. "You used my wedding dress for social media." Lauren looked down. The silence confirmed everything. I felt a wave of disbelief. All this time, I thought something serious must have happened. Maybe she had financial problems. Maybe she was helping a friend. Maybe there was some emergency. Instead, she had taken the most important item from my wedding, simply because she wanted more online attention. "You could have asked." She didn't respond. You could have rented a dress. Nothing. You could have bought one. Still nothing. Finally, Lauren whispered, "It wouldn't have been the same." I stared at her. The answer chilled me, because for the first time, I realized this wasn't really about the dress. It was about jealousy. She wasn't interested in the fabric. She wasn't interested in the photos. She wanted the feeling attached to it, the happiness, the excitement, the attention, everything that came with being a bride. And somehow, she had convinced herself she deserved it more than I did. As I stood there looking at my damaged wedding dress, one painful truth became impossible to ignore. My sister hadn't taken the dress because she needed it. She had taken it because she envied the life she thought I had. And deep down, I feared this situation was far from over. For the next few days, I barely spoke to Lauren. I took the dress to an emergency cleaning and repair service. Fortunately, the damage wasn't permanent. The stains could be removed, and the minor alterations could be fixed. But the repair bill was expensive. Lauren paid every dollar. At least she did that much. Still, my trust in her was broken. What hurt the most wasn't the dress itself. It was the betrayal. She had lied. She had taken something precious without permission. And even after getting caught, she had tried to justify it. I couldn't stop thinking about it. Meanwhile, something unexpected happened online. A few days after our confrontation, one of Lauren's photos from the bridal photo shoot began spreading across social media. At first, people loved the pictures. Thousands of users complimented the dress. They praised Lauren's appearance. They congratulated her. But then someone recognized the dress. One of my friends left a comment. "Isn't this Sarah's wedding dress?" Soon other people started asking questions. Lauren's followers became suspicious. The truth spread quickly. Within hours, people learned that Lauren had taken her sister's wedding dress without permission. The reaction was harsh. Very harsh. Followers criticized her behavior. Sponsors canceled partnerships. Several brands ended their agreements with her. The internet that had once praised her suddenly turned against her. I should have felt satisfied. Part of me did. But another part felt sad. Lauren had made a terrible choice. Yet watching thousands of strangers attack her online wasn't enjoyable. It was painful. She was still my sister. One evening, Daniel found me sitting alone on our porch. "You've been thinking about her, haven't you?" he asked. I nodded. "I don't know what to do." Daniel sat beside me. "You already know." I looked at him. "What do you mean?" "You have every right to be angry." "I am angry." "I know." He smiled gently. "But anger isn't really the problem." I waited. "The real question is whether you want revenge or healing." His words stayed with me long after he went inside. Revenge or healing. The next morning, I received a text message from Lauren. "Can we talk?" For several minutes, I stared at the message. Finally, I replied, "Come over." An hour later, she arrived. The moment I opened the door, I barely recognized her. She looked exhausted. No makeup, no designer clothes, no camera, no phone in her hand. Just Lauren, my little sister. The same girl who used to follow me everywhere when we were children. She sat across from me at the kitchen table. For nearly a minute, neither of us spoke. Then tears filled her eyes. "I'm sorry." The words came out quietly, but they sounded genuine. For the first time since this started, she wasn't making excuses. She wasn't blaming social media. She wasn't blaming stress. She wasn't blaming anyone, only herself. "I was jealous," she admitted. I remained silent. "I kept comparing my life to yours." Her voice trembled. "You seemed happy, stable, loved." I listened, and the more I compared us, the worse I felt. Tears rolled down her cheeks. "When I saw your wedding getting closer, I started feeling invisible." The honesty in her voice surprised me. Lauren continued, "I thought if I could borrow some of that attention, I'd feel better." She laughed bitterly. But I only made everything worse. Finally, I spoke. "Why didn't you just tell me how you felt?" She looked down. "Because I was ashamed." For a moment, neither of us moved. Then I reached across the table and took her hand. Lauren looked up. Her eyes widened. "I forgive you." She immediately began crying harder. "But forgiveness doesn't erase responsibility," I said gently. She nodded. "I know." "You hurt me." "I know." "You broke my trust." "I know." I squeezed her hand, "Then earn it back." She nodded again, and for the first time in weeks, I saw hope in her eyes. 2 weeks later, I walked down the aisle wearing my repaired wedding dress. The ceremony was beautiful. Daniel smiled the moment he saw me. My parents cried, our friends cheered, and in the front row sat Lauren, quiet, respectful, present. After the ceremony, she hugged me tightly. "I'm proud of you," she whispered. I smiled. "I'm proud of you too." Because real family isn't about being perfect. It's about admitting when you're wrong, taking responsibility for your mistakes, and finding the courage to rebuild what was broken. That day, I married the love of my life. But I also got something else back. My sister. Moral lesson. Envy can destroy relationships, but accountability, honesty, and forgiveness can rebuild them. True healing begins when people stop making excuses and start taking responsibility for their actions.